Tonight's guest has built a business around one of the most misunderstood problems in small businesses. But what I didn't expect when I started digging into his story is that he's not just selling benefits packages and problems. He is building a movement. Mike Notte, welcome to the Emily Rassam Show. And I also want to add that Mike is the president of MJN Insurance Services Incorporated in Southern California.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Emily.
So I wanted to get started by having you tell us a little bit about your very unique story and how you went from the East Coast all the way over to the West Coast and got into insurance. Is that something you said, I'm going to be that when I grow up?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first off and foremost, I grew up in a really small town in Northeast Ohio called Thompson, Ohio. So if you know where Thompson's at, give me a call and give me some landmarks surrounding it, and I'll give you $1 because it's really tiny. About 800 people live there. I graduated 34 kids in my senior class. And the main, jobs that were kind of available in that town would be farmer, tractor salesman, auto mechanic. And I'm not good with my hands. I'm not handy at all. My dad was a musician. He worked in a company in another town in their shipping department and stuff. So, come from a real blue collar background, but I didn't want to live the blue collar paycheck type deal, right? So back then, small minds, like, nothing wrong with that. But for me, what I saw around me, the median income was about 34 grand a year per household. And I just wanted more in life. And a lot of that started from my dad actually teaching me not only how to play music, but how the music industry actually works. And, he used to, every time I hear a good song that he liked on the radio, he's like, man, I wish I would have wrote that. That writer is getting paid 80 cents every time that song plays on the radio. That's the sweet life. And so he used to actually make a bunch of demo tapes and pack up the family. We'd go down to Nashville and, the kids and mom would be staying in the pool at the hotel, and the dad was out meeting with producers trying to pitch his songs and do all that kind of stuff. And got close a couple times, but never came to fruition. But, from an early age, I was taught the power of residual income before really knowing what residual income was. And just kind of always had that stuck in my head. And I thought my way out of this town is to, make my own band and play some heavy metal music and become the next James Hetfield or, Kurt Cobain. And I'll be living the sweet life, like my dad would say, and I started bands in high school. I started playing music and went to college just to put off the real world so I could stay on my parents' health insurance, for longer and not have to pay them rent. While I was in college, I got introduced to a guy who was a self-made millionaire through the bar and restaurant industry by the time he was 28 years old. And long story long, ended up working with him in a network marketing company that was different than what I'm doing nowadays, but same kind of idea. Do something once, get paid on it forever and ever, build a sales team, and make residuals off of that. I just locked myself in the front seat of his car. And every time we were driving to meetings, I was there first in the parking lot waiting for him. I was there, the last person to get dropped off, and then had a bunch of questions for him afterwards. And he taught me how millionaires think and how the world really works. And just one day, about 2.5 years of riding around with him, he said, "Hey, my mentor passed away. He was an insurance guy. I just bought the book of business. Go get your insurance license." I was like, "No, I'm not going to do that." And he was like, "No, trust me, man, you're going to be great at this. And it's a really, really cool thing that we're going to be able to do because we're not selling, traditional health insurance or, property and casualty and anything like that. So we're going to sell cancer insurance to school teachers." I said, "What? First off, why do we need cancer insurance? And what are you getting at with this?" He goes, "No, it's called supplemental insurance. It pays people when they're down and out the most. They get diagnosed with something like cancer. It pays them cash so that they can pay for the non-medical stuff not covered by their health insurance, like their rent or their mortgage or, utility bills." He's like, "But here's the cool thing. The carrier we're going to use, they pay you all your money back if you don't use your insurance. They have a return of premium feature that after 20 years of keeping it in force, that person gets all their money back. Their policy stays in force at the same rate and the same benefit level. And you keep getting paid on it every time, every month they pay their premiums. You're going to get paid that residual income." So I told you, go get your insurance license. You're going to like what I'm talking about. So I did. He helped me get my license, and we started going to work, and we were trying to, kind of build his agency in a way, right? And after about, a year and a half, my paychecks were very inconsistent because we had no systems, no process, but we had a lot of good instincts and a lot of good grit. I found myself to where I was excited about the future because I was 25 years old. I had a faux hawk, 2 pairs of dress pants, and 2 dress shirts, and I had optimism, and that was kind of my secret to everything. So no matter how bad the week was, I was always looking forward to that, 6 figure, income coming down the line later. Long story long, we were working with school districts mostly and providing just one benefit to these teachers. So we weren't making a whole lot of money. And in the summertime came, there was no work for me to do. So we were trying to experiment with all this different life insurance stuff and this, that, and the other. But I went 15 weeks without a paycheck. And I said, wow, this is getting really hard. I found myself $20,000 in credit card debt. My student loans were coming due. I was owing my roommate $1,200 in rent and utilities. He also happened to be my landlord because he owned the house I lived in at the time, and missed 2 car payments in a row. And to top it all off, my checking account was overdrawn, and I'll never forget this number, $637.52 on this given day. And I was feeling pretty sorry for myself, when it came down to it. And I told my roommate, hey, let me landscape your yard so I can at least work off some of my debt, because I used to do landscaping coming from that blue collar background. I wasn't really good at it, but I could muscle through it, right? To at least negotiate some kind of a deal. Well, while I was planting a tree, the mailman showed up and I decided to use that as an opportunity to take a break. And when they showed up, there was a letter in there for me from the insurance carrier we were dealing with. And I had to respond to it with something, a copy of my license or who knows. This was pre, online type stuff. And I had to get a stamp to, send this thing in. I don't know why I needed a stamp. They either didn't send the return envelope or I lost it. Who knows? This was, almost 20 years ago at this point. And I said, okay, I need to find money for this stamp. So I went through my, couch cushions, my car cushions, my underwear drawer. I didn't have one red cent to my name. I just started laughing. I said, you know what? Every single millionaire I've ever learned from or heard about or read a book by, they've all got to this point at some point in their life. I'm so glad I'm getting to it at 25 instead of at 45. And so I said, okay, let's just stop for the rest of the day. We're going to start it over again tomorrow. Well, the next morning, I was sitting on my couch getting ready to do whatever I was going to do that day. And my phone went off with a notification from Chase Bank saying, hey, you got a deposit into your account. I was like, what's that for? So I looked and about $300 hit my checking account. And that's, again, first time I've been paid in 15 weeks on anything. And I said, what is this? I looked and it was all my renewals from, sure enough, all those insurance policies I sold the year prior. Everyone started, making their payments. I started making my residual income now. And I thought to myself, wow, if I get really good at this could be like 3,000 or even 30,000. I mean, what if I got so good it could be 300,000? At that point, I made up my mind. And it's funny how the universe works because, living in Northeast Ohio, I was still trying to make it in the music industry. I was playing in bands, on the weekends and, Cleveland, Ohio, Peabody's, shout out if you know who Peabody's is or where Peabody's was. We play there all the time. Had a really good following in the Midwest, but I knew I was in the Midwest and it was not in LA. But it's funny how the universe works. As soon as you get committed to something, the door starts to open. Well, as soon as I got that $300 deposit, I made up my mind. I'm not quitting on either dream. One is going to pay me one way or another. And the very next week, we got a call from another organization selling the same product to the same customers that we were, but they had a system and an organized way of doing things and said, hey, you guys should come over and join with us. You're going to have more access, more freedom to do things you want to do. Plugged into their system, started selling more insurance in 2 weeks, and it would take me to doing 2 months trying to do it my way. And so that's when light bulb went off. So I got real committed to their processes and the way to do things. Long story long, working with that IMO, I got a call from them saying about 3 years later, hey, you're doing really well. We could use some leadership in the Southwest, in Southern California. If you'd like to move, we would pay for you to move over there, give you control of this book of business. And basically, we want you to build a sales team and run it for us. I said, well, if you give me enough money to move me and my whole band, I'll do it. And they said yes. And so they gave me a family bonus, because I wasn't married, but they gave me a family bonus to move my entire band over. My bass player ended up coming with me. Everyone else decided to chicken out and stay home. Sorry, guys, you got thrown under the bus a little bit. I'm still friends with everybody. A little fun ribbing there. But my bass player came all the way across the country with me. We ended up in Fullerton, California in 2014 and started the band over while also pursuing my insurance career. Eventually incorporated and became MJ and Insurance Services. Still manage that book for the IMO, but also have my own business as well going on now. We're servicing, small businesses and medium-sized businesses all over the country in some unique ways. And I use my talents from playing in the band because it's not just the singing and the playing, it's also managing the books, managing the tours, managing the people, and it helped me learn some creative ways to negotiate and deal with people in different situations to come up with solutions. And I kind of transfer some of that, which sounds weird, into what I do with the insurance. So now I'm in Southern California. I'm no longer doing the band thing, but I still think about it often and always with fondness in my heart, and just solely focused now on growing my book of business and helping as many small to medium sized businesses, no matter where they are, as best I possibly can. So that's me in a nutshell.
That is quite a story. I love it. So, do you find that really your love of music kind of gave you the entrepreneurial bug in
Yeah,
a way?
yeah,
Because it
absolutely.
and did it keep you going when times were tough? Because I know I've had some of those looking for change moments in my life too. And the older I get, my husband and I, every time we say SHTF, we have a toast every single time. And I'm like, it's only up from here. It's our little tradition we have. So you can steal it if you like.
All right, yeah.
And let's see. So you go from Ohio to California. Was it tough, like deciding to move to California, or was it an easy decision?
It was really well, it depends on your definition of tough, right? Like, it was easy to be like, "Yes, I'm going." It was tough to leave everybody behind, you know?
Yes.
That's the thing, because like, if Northeast Ohio and their weather, it's terrible. I get seasonal depression, so I was depressed often because they had about 7 cloudless days a year. It snowed by the foot, it rained by the hour, I mean, it was just terrible, terrible weather, and I hated it all the time. I love the people, they're great, there's a lot of great values out there. The sports fans, there's no one like an Ohio sports fan. I'll put it up against anybody out there. Go Browns, by the way. But, so a lot of great fun, a lot of great memories, but never liked the weather and always knew I just wanted to get out of that life. And so when the call came to Southern California, that was about the only place that I say I was excited about getting the call to move. I was offered to move to Virginia. I was offered to move to Florida for different things. But when, Southern California came up, it was a no brainer. This is where I got to go. I mean, trying to make it music. Well, hello, Sunset Strip. Let's go play the Whiskey a Go Go. And get recognized, right? So that was they checked every box, and it was really simple to make the decision to say yes, and then it was just trying to get everything in line in order to go. Someone asked me the other day if there was fear involved, and yeah, it was kind of fearful, but it was like I knew what I was trying to do for myself, so I'd already conquered that fear to make the decision, 15 years before the opportunity even came to me. I just have always known, like, there's going to be a day I'm going to have to leave my comfort zone here and go out on my own and do the thing. So I just happen to be blessed to have a company that I was able to move with and, support myself prior to getting there. Hats off to the people that have nothing and just make something happen when they get here, by the way, because there's a lot of those people I meet too. It just happened to work out for me where I had, kind of something to fall back on and, you know, make it happen.
And amen to that. Yes, you meet a lot of people that are good at hustling to make ends meet while they're following their dream there. I definitely agree to that. And so, how was it for you as a business person and, the lead vocalist in the band? When you moved to a new area, what was it like starting over in your sphere for networking? Was it something that you found difficult? And are there any tips you have for someone who might not have a good network in their area about how to grow it and do a good job doing that?
Yeah. So that is a great question, and it makes me think a little bit how we did this. And so first thing was getting connected with some local people to start the band up with. So it was just back then ads on Craigslist, and we kind of met some people that way, tried them out, brought them into the band, and then they turned us onto their network and all that stuff. Once we had a band together, it was easy to kind of network at that point because you're with like minds, right? Like, you're kind of flocking with your tribe when it comes to the music side of things. Business, totally different because, I know nobody. I was younger at the time. I was just turning 30. So my experience level with business was, really, I was half in, when it came to business. I was all in on the band. I was half in on the insurance back then. So it was kind of more like, I'm managing this book. I'll fall into some leads here once in a while. But the book I was managing was kind of supporting my income. So like the network side for the music though, I kind of knew, growing up, I was always going to bars and always going to shows. So like I knew, hey, if I want to meet a specific type of person, maybe wear this band shirt. Like I like the band, I can speak to them about it, but someone's going to come up to me and maybe say, hey, that's a cool band that's kind of like off the beaten path, like no one's heard of yet. So like maybe we can kind of form a bond that way. And, it just kind of happened to be that. I met a guy who was a drummer from this other band, like a punk rock band, and I was wearing a band shirt and he's like, dude, I didn't know anybody knows those guys. That's awesome. Like, and it kind of struck up a conversation and a friendship, and then just kind of, being in the right place with the right people, get you connected as best you can. I mean, go to the places. I mean, the way we built our following in Cleveland was no one heard of us before. So we burned CDs with like 2 songs, 3 songs. And then we used to do free shows at Peabody's and we'd stick tickets for the show in the CD. So it was like, hey, you got this concert ticket and a free CD. Yeah, let's listen to the demo. And then if the band's cool, like let's check it out, And so we built it up that way to where if you put our name on the flyer that we were headlining, you're going to have between 300 to 500 people in that club, to see us, which was great. I mean, we'd play great shows there. So in California, we tried to transfer over, do kind of the same thing. And what I found is it's really just not so much like our music was okay. We didn't light the world on fire. We didn't write any hits and stuff. Like I like it. The band liked it. We had a lot of people that liked it. Would we have ever made it on a national level if the right person heard it? I don't know. But what I found is that people came to the shows for the experience and the culture that we created. So it's really more about that old saying of, people will forget what you say, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And so anytime I handed a CD or I handed a flyer or anything to anybody, I wanted to show my appreciation for them to take the time to make a connection with me and really, hear them and listen to them rather than just wait for the opportunity for me to, present my pitch. So when I've transferred that now to business, it's kind of the same thing. Like I do a lot of cold calling still. I'm old school. I will walk door to door in a business complex and hand out my flyers and a little bit about my offer, but it's more an intro letter. Like, hey, I'm your neighbor. I want to get to know what you do for your business. And honestly, if I live here in your area and you have a service that I'm going to need, I'm going to buy it from you. I don't go on Amazon if I can get it from, Rick down the road, but I want it's and it's just really just to support because I know how hard it is for people out there. And so I always try and make those types of connections and that feeling first, like, hey, I'm here to support you, whether we do business or not. Like, we're in this community together. So let's work to make it better for you and for me and for everybody else around us. So let's do that. So that's kind of the emotions that I bring with me into any meeting that I go in. It's like, okay, how can I help you win today? And I know if I do that enough, I'm going to get what I want at the end, one way or another. Like it might come 5 years from now from you, but it just starts that way. Like it's just in the store down in Dana Point the other day. They're not brand new, but I'd never been there before. I was like, oh, this is unique. It turns out the owner's working in there, and we just started chatting. And of course, I bought something. Did I need the thing that I bought? No. Am I actually going to do anything with it? I don't know. Maybe I will. But I bought it because the guy was a nice guy. He made me feel good, and I was like, you know what? I want this store to stay open because Eric is doing great and I want to support this business. And I can tell he's got a lot of overhead sitting here on the ocean. So let me throw my $50, $60 into the pot, help him pay his lease on that on that really prime real estate he's got there because he's a nice guy and his business is good. So that's kind of the way I network is I just support you, support me.
I really appreciate that because I know I have experienced the opposite of that, where you have too much of a sales pitch type person. And I know for a fact that people respond more to kindness and making a friend with them than anything else. So now we're going to kind of segue into talking a little bit more about career building and some of the things you mentioned in your social media. I'm going to read this so I don't mess it up. You said you're looking for people who know they're meant for more in your bio that you sent me. And I really liked the way that was worded. So I wanted to ask you, what is broken about the way most people think about building a career?
Well, it depends. I think it starts with our education system, our public education system, and just from K through 12, right? I don't want to get into the college stuff. There's a lot wrong there too, but K through 12, this was started, when America was getting started and we needed workers for the factories and, keep the towns running. So in school, you're taught how to be a good employee. And so, we're often fed information that gives us enough information to hey, this is how you beat life. You get good grades, you get a good job, and you retire at 65, 70 years old or whatever, and just kind of do it that way. I never fell for that trap. It was always like, I can see the BS behind all this stuff. Like, you're just trying to put me in a place to control me, to, you know, conform me and this, that, and the other. So I think it kind of starts there. And it's really getting dangerous to the point where, America is the country we are because of entrepreneurs and because of the small and medium sized business owners. If that goes away, our economy crashes overnight, in my opinion. And I'm a big believer in the American dream. So the first thing is self educate. Don't just take what people are telling you in these school lessons and whatnot. Get some good books and learn about the subjects that you want to learn about. But more importantly, learn about the way the world works behind the scenes. A lot of decisions are made about how we live our lives in this country by people that have other interests or that just, they see things differently. Let's put it that way. And, if I don't fit in that mold, what can I do to control my own outcome? You got to have the belief that you're 100% in control of everything that you want to have happen. You just need to find the way to do it. So I think the first thing is in our public school system, we need to have more like entrepreneurism needs to be celebrated more. There needs to be more courses and opportunities for people to learn about, hey, this is what the world needs. And these are some small business ideas. There's some things that you can do to build a business for yourself. Or like, let's say you're a mechanic. All right, I'm going to a trade school. Do those trade schools teach you about how to incorporate yourself and how to avoid paying over, too many taxes and how to hire, how to onboard, and like all this stuff? I'm going to say no. I'm saying that you're being taught by a mechanic how to be a good mechanic. And when you graduate from that trade school, you come out looking for a job, building someone else's dream in their shop. Right. So you can only learn by like real world experience, or a lot of times people learn from their parents and stuff. We need, perfect example. So I hire nothing but 1099 independent contractors. You get appointed directly with the carrier and the carrier pays your commission. I am just teaching you how to, sell insurance. I get a little bit of an override for you selling insurance. But one thing I take a step further with all my reps is at our meetings where we bring the whole team together, I'm not just teaching you how to sell an insurance policy. I'm teaching you how to build your agency and run it effectively. And I'm going to give you strategies on how to, the right questions to ask your CPA. I'm not a CPA, but I've been around long enough to know the right questions to ask and know when I'm overpaying on income tax when I shouldn't be and when to fire that CPA. I've had to do that. I've learned things the hard way, right? It kills me when I hear my reps come back and say, man, they start making, a couple hundred grand a year and they haven't incorporated themselves yet. I'm like, what are you talking about? You haven't incorporated yourself. Do you understand what you're paying in self-employment tax? Like, that's ridiculous. And so
They
here's
do
my
after
people.
tax season. They do after tax.
They all learn.
So painful.
Some
It's
of them
so
don't even
painful.
learn the hard way. They're seeing 40, 50 grand go out of their account and they just go, oh, it's just how it is. And I'm like, that's not just how it is. The CPA I fired, he told me he has a client that made 300,000 a year and yet paid 90 grand in income tax. He said, that's just the way it is. I said, not according to the books that I've read, sir. So I know you're working for the IRS and not for me. We're done here. And we've got to another one. So I teach people how to think like a real entrepreneur. You should be keeping your money in your pocket. We do enough for the economy. We're providing jobs. We're providing stable incomes. We're supporting our local businesses with the things that we buy and the commissions that are paid. They're buying things to support the local economy. It's unpatriotic to overpay on federal and state income tax. That's just my opinion. But, I just got sick of watching that profit go out the way. So I can't stand it when I see my agents and, people coming to work with me holding themselves small. You ask me, why I'm looking for people that want more than what they feel that they've been given, or, they know they're meant for more than what the hand is that they've played. Let me pull back the curtain and show you, the Wizard of Oz, what's going on back there and who's actually pulling the strings and get you away from them flying monkeys that are holding you down and keeping you in a place where, you're just over broke. That's a job, right? So let's get you to that next level.
That's a great analogy. I love that.
Just kind of came
So
up with that one.
I like it. What about so I know a few graduates this year. What would you say to high school graduates right now? I know they definitely said it when we were graduating from high school. Oh, the economy is so bad. You're never going to be successful. You're never going to be as successful as the boomer generation, etc. What would you say to them?
I'd say that's 100% true if you just leave college and you get into the workforce as a W-2 employee. That is true. You won't. It is working against you. You have to get yourself in a position where you're either earning commission or you're getting paid what you're worth. And that could be just an idea. Maybe you invent something that changes the way people do things and make life easier, but don't just settle for that W-2 job. Now, there's a lot of great employees out there and there's a path for some people that get independently wealthy over time, moving into certain things. Like you want to become a lawyer, that's great. But try and get yourself in a position where you can work as fast as you can to a partner or own your own firm and like specialize in something. Find a niche and specialize in it. Same thing for like doctors, all that stuff. And for those people, by the way, it's laid out, hey, if you want to become a lawyer, here's what you need to do. Get good grades, get into good college, get good grades there, graduate from there, go to law school, and then do XYZ, and you end up in a law firm, and then you start things off. For people like me that didn't like school, that was just checking the box, and like, I was smart enough, I could do the math equations until they started putting letters in it, and then I got confused a little bit. But I was really good in English, and gym, I killed it. I'll be honest, but it's like I just was there because I had to be there. I was not excited about learning history and all this stuff. I am now, but back then I just wanted to play guitar and play sports and go out and play with my buddies. So the idea of college, I was not taught, by my teachers like, hey, college is like how you find yourself and you're gonna, really discover what it is you truly want. It was more like, okay, so you're getting into your junior year. Where do you want to go to college and what do you want to major in? I'm like, I don't know. Nothing, like I play music by ear, so that's out. I can't be a music major. Even if I could, the idea of being paid to play like classical music and this thing or whatever, like I had no idea what jobs are available to me in the music world other than like be the next corn, because that's what I was trying to do. So I wasn't excited about school whatsoever. But I would tell people that are getting ready to graduate high school, I would go to college, but go with the mindset of it's not about what I learn. It's going to be more about who I meet. And it's going to be more about what I learn about myself than anything and grow up there a bit. Like take those extra years to really fall on your face, make some mistakes and, create some memories. It's going to be the time that you're going to look back on and go, wow, super irresponsible. It'll be great to be able to go back to those days, and do that thing. So if you're like myself, where you're not sure what to do, you're graduating high school, just go to college, or if you don't go to college, come work with me and I'll
There
put
you
you
go.
through not a university on, how to really, take life by the horns and build yourself a really strong residual income at a very, very young age to set yourself up for some major, major income before you're even the age I started. I started when I was 25. Had I started when I was 18, I don't know if I would have made it because I might not have the right mindset. So, we'll find that out real quick. But, get yourself a mentor if you're not going to go to college and ask them a ton of questions. There's going to be somebody in your local area, neighborhood, or the whatever industry you're trying to get into that would be willing to share their advice. It may not be readily available and 100% free all the time, but find that person that really wants to give back to you what they did for themselves and just latch onto them and just watch. There's a great Instagram channel, the School of Hard Knocks. The guy goes around and interviews
Oh yeah, that's a good
millionaires and
one.
billionaires, right? I love the questions he asks those people. And it's amazing how such accomplished people are so approachable, when you really look at it. And so as an 18-year-old kid getting ready to graduate high school, remember that people that are successful are oftentimes the most approachable. They're in a good mood. They did good things. They're proud of themselves. And most people favorite subject when you start in conversation, if you want the conversation to last a long time, Get them talking about themselves. I've been rambling for 31 minutes and 30 seconds here. So, you know, that's an easy tip and trick for someone that's, getting ready to get out of high school. Find a mentor, get them talking about themselves, and listen, though. Pay attention.
I'm going to add two tips on with Mike's sage advice he has offered us. One is that usually those people he's talking about do not have a lot of people approach them to talk because people are scared to talk with them. So they're extra excited when you do get over there and talk to them. And his advice of learning how to network in college being probably the most important skill you will learn there is 100% correct if you are interested in the entrepreneurial sphere. And insurance is a great way to get into it. And it doesn't take that long to study for the exam, and you can get started right away.
Yeah.
I know because I've done it. And you don't have to pass with 100%. You pass by one question and you're good. You learn everything afterwards, and that is how it works. So now I would like to segue into talking a little bit about leadership. I would like to know from you, what is your definition of leader? And you don't have to use like the textbook definition.
A leader is always someone that goes forth before knowing what the outcome is going to be, right? They're the pioneers. They're the ones that clear the path. They blaze the trail for others to come behind them. At the same time, they're putting their own needs behind others as well, right? So it's leaders are the people again playing for something bigger than than just themselves. And they're playing a different game. And one thing I always make damn sure of, excuse my French, but there's never going to be a time where I look at an agent and I tell them to do something that I haven't done myself or I haven't had some kind of experience with or wouldn't be willing to do myself. There are, when I was managing that book for the IMO, I'm still part of, I would drive from Fullerton, California to Salt Lake City on a Sunday and work in Salt Lake from Monday through Friday, drive back to Vegas, stay there for the weekend, then drive back up to Salt Lake. I did it for 6 weeks straight where I didn't even see my bed. But I did that because I had a mission I was on and I wanted things. And I told the guy that was teaching me how to do this stuff what I wanted to do. And he said, here's how you support your goals. And I told him, I said, you've never ever driven as many miles as I have, by the time I was done. He said, you want to see my odometer? I turned in a car I drove for 1 year and it had 72,000 miles on it. It started with zero, pal. So what you're doing is a cakewalk compared to what I did. And so I've got reps right now asking me, hey, how do I make 250,000 a year? Well, you got to go where the business is. And if it happens to be 1,000 miles from your home, are you willing to go get it? Are you willing to go up there and make it worth your time? I can show you my mileage book. I'll show you all the things I used to do where I'm at today. If you want to do those things and pay the same price, you can be here too, but it's going to cost you something. And I gave up part of that stuff for me, and you can do the same thing. You got the talent, you got the drive, you can do it. But I'll never tell you to do something I've never done for myself. I won't tell you, oh, well, just buy a bunch of leads and spend $10,000 on XYZ and hope for the best. Like I have no experience in that, so I'm not going to tell you to do it. So, yeah, I mean, that's the main thing for me is leaders clear the path for others, make sure that they're coming behind you, but put yourself behind everybody on their way up.
Right. And like the book by, is it Simon Sinek? Sinek?
Leaders eat last.
Leaders eat last. So true. Most of the leaders that I meet at events don't ever eat while they're, they probably don't even eat,
Yeah.
maybe even not even last. And do you think leaders are born or built?
I think it's a combination of both. I've seen people that, should be great leaders. They have all the charisma, they have all the right tools, but then they never develop it and they don't see what their shortcomings are and they start losing their followers at some point because they hit that. It's the law of the lid by John Maxwell, right? You hit your leadership lid and then you can't grow from there. And so then all of a sudden you're dying and you fall off that ledge. I've seen other people that never asked to be in a leadership position, but when they were called to it, they rose up to the occasion. Maybe it took some guidance and took some mentorship, but they were willing to learn and it got them to that place. So I think it's a combination of both and recognizing, where your skill set is, doing the right things though, because the one thing that has to be in common at some point, it has to be developed. It's either right at the beginning or it's after your natural talent and your charm has worn off or you've gotten past that point and now you got to develop to the next level that reach that next level of followers, so that's why I
That's
believe.
usually That's usually about the time you have an "oh no" moment, and I'm editing that for clean language.
Yeah.
The "oh no" moment. And what is the best leadership you have ever witnessed in your life, and what made it different?
Goodness. That is so difficult to answer. That's a great question. Best leadership I've ever witnessed. I mean, I have been so lucky to be surrounded by so many great leaders of, all genders, all backgrounds, all races, ethnicities. It's so hard to pick one. But the thing that they all have in common is, I would say, strength and being able to take on challenges and adversity head on with no blame game, no passing the buck, just, as Jocko Willnick says, extreme ownership. When I see somebody take extreme ownership and, they can be fearful, but to go forth anyway, regardless of the adversity, that's great leadership to me. Other good examples are when, somebody makes a mistake and instead of calling them out and, tearing them down or, make an example, hey, here's what I could have done to help you in that situation instead, right? Or, taking somebody from a place of, I've seen some people come through that I've even prejudged and this person will never make it. They just don't have it. I don't see what this person sees in them, but then to take them from what that vision of was to a top producer, that's leadership. So I mean, it's all a matter of time and energy, and really just the strength overall is what to me has been the best example of it. Yeah, I can't pick just one. I've got too many.
Well, I like the answer anyway. It was good. So, I want to talk a little bit more about your business now. Can you break this down simply? Because I know you work with small businesses and medium size. What does a small business owner actually lose when they don't get their benefits right?
Talent. They lose their talent.
Talent.
That's the main thing. And the quality of your talent determines the quality of your service and the quality of your business overall. So to retain and attract the best talent, you've got to be able to take care of them. People depend on their employers, not just for their salary, but also for their health insurance and their 401ks and all that kind of stuff. Because, the days of them going out and seeking insurance on their own and the insurance man sitting around the table with the whole family and selling that life insurance policy and all that other stuff, that's pretty much over. Most people are very comfortable and familiar and expect to get their benefits from their employer. So the biggest mistake any small business owner can make is not offering anything at all. I mean, it's going to cost you so much in talent because, someone comes on board, they like your company, they learn all the things, and all of a sudden, it's that law of that lid part, right? You got this employee that's breaking through their lid to get that next level, and you don't have a benefit package your competitor does, and they're going to offer them the same salary plus benefits for their whole family because they're trying to grow and they're having a kid soon and this and that and the other. Where are they going to go? I don't care how good your culture is. I don't care how great your product is compared to the other one. When it comes down to taking care of their family, they're going to do what's best for them. So instead of making the assumption of, oh, I can't afford to offer anything, so that's why I'm not going to hire somebody like me to come work with you so I can present you some options, because there might be something that you can do that actually doesn't cost you anything in the, really, that will keep these employees around a little bit longer. Or, there could be a way to build a benefit package at a budget that makes perfect sense for you, something that you can afford. And me personally, I can make it feel like a gold PPO plan being offered in your work site, the same that Apple could offer to their employees. All comes down to the quality of service that you receive and the quality of the education your employees get on how to utilize and use those benefits. So the second biggest mistake that business owners make is assuming it's too expensive and not doing anything at all, but also buying like the cheapest benefit package, but not offering education to their employees about how it works. Because I can build you a plan that has a $10,000 deductible, bronze whatever from whatever carrier you want to go with. And your employee is going to be paying X amount in premium for that every month. But then when they go file a claim, they're going to come out of pocket still. That's not a good deal for them, right? It's not going to feel good. But we can offer that same $10,000 plan and we can add just a little bit more in premium for a gap plan that fills it from the first dollar up to a certain amount. We can customize that for you. So that way, when your employee goes to the doctor, instead of getting a bill, they got something that's going to take care of that for them on top of the insurance they've got. So there's just all kinds of creative solutions that we can do with these things nowadays. The Affordable Care Act opened up a world of possibility for business owners. And look, as a business owner, if you own a welding shop, I don't expect you to spend your midnights on a Friday or Saturday cruising through the Affordable Care Act bill and looking for all these things that you can do as a small business owner. That's what I'm paid to do. And by the way, it costs you nothing, absolutely nothing to work with me. So let me come in. I make my commissions from the carriers and the services that I can provide. Cost you nothing to work with me. So don't go try and be an expert and just shop online for health insurance for my employees and roll out a plan that's too doesn't do anything. Work with me. I can come up with some very creative solutions to help solve your problems. And be picky with your broker too, because oftentimes companies are like, hey, I want health insurance for our employees. So they look up an insurance broker, they take the first one they find on Google and they, go, okay, great. So go shop me around and they're going to shop around your census to, the major carriers in the way and you give them a budget. They'll find a carrier that fits that budget and boom, there you go. You have your plan. Well, that's true. And, here's the thing. A lot of brokers are saying, oh, I'm the only one that can get you this deal from this carrier. Oftentimes that's not the case. The difference between brokers is the quality of the service that they offer after the sale. So for those of you listening, that if you're not happy with your broker services or you're wondering, hey, why hasn't my broker called me in a while? Or if you haven't been called by your broker with a new strategy for, some things that are coming down the pipeline, maybe it's time to start shopping that stuff out on your own and get a couple opinions. And I do free benefit audits for employers all the time. So if you want me to just take a look at your benefit package, trust me, I'm honest. I'm not there to step on anybody's toes and steal business from somebody. But if you got a broker that's kind of lazy and just sitting back and collecting their commission, and when it comes to renewal time, they just go, "Hey, man, this is what it is. We can switch you to this person," but they're not coming to you with any other creative solutions on how to help you save and treat your employees better. Let me take a crack at it. Let's see what we can do. And, we'll take it from there.
Good answer. Good answer. And now that we are finalizing things, besides this, that if you do need help, call Mike and his team. We will have his links down in the boxes below in whichever social media you are finding us on. And now is the part of the show where I get to ask Mike 3 kind of personal questions. Number 1 is, what is the best piece of advice you have ever received? And can you tell us about it a little bit?
Yeah, this one's easy. So that day that I was overdrawn $637.52 in my checking account, the part of the story that I never really tell is I was so overdrawn at that point because in the summertime when we were, trying to, sell cancer insurance to school teachers, the summertime we pivoted our strategy and we started working with these church groups, handing out lead cards as part of their collection play. We partnered with this National Baptist, whatever. My territory was 2.5 hours away from my house to collect those cards. So I'd have to go to this church service on Sunday, collect all the leads, and then run them Monday through Friday. Well, I didn't have money for a hotel, and it was a toll road to get there. So I-80 in Ohio, by the way, I had to go from Kent, Ohio to Toledo, which is my territory, 2.5 hour drive each direction, meet with 4 or 5 people in a day, come back. And so it was a $13.50 toll, and it was a whole tank of gas to get there and back. And one of the days, one Sunday came up, I was 25, 26 years old. I'd spent my roommate's money on some beer that Saturday night. Sunday rolled around. I said, you know what? I'm too hungover and it's costing me money to go here. This is not worth my time. I'm just not going to go. So I just did a no show to the Sunday service. Well, that pastor called the guy that had originally scheduled me to be there, who happened to be my mentor. And he said, mentor meeting on Monday. We got to get together. And so I talked to him. We got lunch and he said, I'm really mad at you. I'm upset with you right now. Why did you not go to that place? And I had to break down. I broke down in tears. I said, look, man, I'm so broke right now. It cost me everything. I got no credit cards at work. I'm overdrawn my account.
Yes, you were telling me about, I assume it was Gwaltney hot dogs from Save a Lot.
Might have been. I don't remember the pack and the name
I may
of
have
them.
purchased these before.
Yeah. It was the 48 pack for $2.50. And I used to
They're
spring.
much more expensive nowadays.
Yeah.
I
This
will
was
tell you that.
2009, So anyway, so I was going through all these struggles and my mentor was like, why did you just not show up? And I said, well, look, I just couldn't bring myself to go there and do it because life is so crappy right now. Like it's so bad. I was just in such a bad headspace. He said, well, look, you have 2 choices that I'm going to give you right now. One, you can quit and I can call my buddy that works at Chase Bank and I can get you a job there. You probably make a $35,000 a year salary plus benefits and all this debt that you have, you're still going to have it probably 20 years from now if we go that route. He says, the other thing you can do is you can trust me and realize that all these things you're going through are lessons and they're sharpening your sword to get you to a place where when you're in charge of somebody or you're helping people like I'm helping you right now, they're going to come to you one day and they're going to say, this is hard. And you're going to say, I know it is. It's supposed to be. And you're going to be so grateful for these moments because you're going to be able to help coach an all-star that you have on your team that's getting ready to quit. Like I'm watching one right now go out the door, but you're going to be able to retain that talent because you're going to be able to tell them what they need to hear in order to keep going and get them to a place of where they're comfortable again. If you don't go through these times, you're not going to be able to help the persons that you're bringing through that are going to go through these times. And I've replayed that conversation in my mind every time I get an agent that comes to me that says, this is just too hard. This is just too hard. This is just too hard. And I get to reassure them the good times are coming. Give me 18 months and I'll change your life. But you got to give me 18 months. It's hard. Everybody wants to go to heaven. Nobody wants to die. So you got to, live through this. And that was the best advice I ever got.
That is really great advice. Thank you for sharing that story. My next question is, what is your favorite book that you did not write, if you have written a book, that you recommend to everyone?
Ooh, man, favorite book. Yeah, again, so many of them. It depends on like kind of what I'm going through, what I'm trying to do during that time. But I'd say the best book for leadership is definitely Extreme Ownership. I mentioned it earlier by Jocko. And for people though that are just getting started in like the personal development side of things, anything by Tony Robbins, particularly Unlimited Power and Awaken the Giant Within. And then my other go-to has always been Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That has given me such an education about how things work behind the scenes, like the magic people behind the curtain and how to avoid taxes and how to leverage assets in real estate. That taught me how to think differently and it just changed my life for the better automatically. So those would be like my top recommendations. I don't have a favorite, but
And if you're like Mike back in the day when he couldn't afford a stamp, they are mostly on YouTube for free, just in case you need
yeah.
that. Most of those are on YouTube for free. And then my last question is, what is your favorite restaurant in the Orange County area that you recommend
Oh,
in case
man.
someone is going out there for a visit?
See, I'm really not good at picking one thing, but I'm telling you, if you're coming down to visit in Orange County, California, go to Laguna Beach and go to the Cliff Restaurant. The Cliff Restaurant has got it's like an outdoor setting, so you're outdoor, you're totally exposed to all the elements, and you're right on a cliff overlooking the ocean. My wife and I go there often. We just took our newborn there the other day, and almost every time, not every time, but almost every time, it's good for a little dolphin show, with your dinner. So it's a great place to go. Highly recommend it anytime you come into town. But the Cliff in Laguna Beach, definitely go check it out if you're in town.
I second that one. It is a great restaurant,
Mhm.
good location, and you can sometimes see a blue whale because they do migrate right through that area
They do.
if you're really, really lucky. Well, I wanted to thank you so much for joining me. This conversation is exactly what we all needed to hear, and I appreciate your heartfelt stories and experience in leadership and learning. So thank you for joining me today.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily.